Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you know when live we go. Dear students, Rao's IAS Prelims Test Series 2021 is a complete testing and revision course for the upcoming prelims examination. The program will help you prepare for UPSC prelims through a step-up approach. It is a meticulously designed study plan to organize your preparation and keep you on track towards covering the prelims GS and CSAT syllabus extensively from NCERT to the advanced level. The goal of our Prelims Test Series 2021 program is to exhaustively cover all standard sources of study material, including NCERT, with a study plan, to test you at par with UPSC level of questions, thereby improving your chances of clearing the prelims examination, to give multiple revision of the entire syllabus from the perspective of civil service prelims pattern. The test series program will also give you the final revision of all topics and themes before the examination through QIP videos and prelims compass notes. The QIP videos or Quality Improvement Program videos are for speedy revision of all important topics for the upcoming prelims examination. QIP videos are kind of crash course for the prelims examination. And prelims compass are 8 subject-wise prelims compilation of all static and current affair topics important for the upcoming prelims. Rao's IAS Prelims Test Series 2021 will include topics test, testing the concept of candidate. It will include thematic test on both the concept and the current affair of that particular theme. It will also include current affair tests covering the monthly current affairs. And there will be full-length test before the final exam to simulate you for the D-Day. There is a link in the description of this video. You can click on the link for registration and to also check out the demo QIP videos. We are going to have discussion on today's newspaper, The Hindu, Delhi edition dated 21st November 2020. We shall take up articles important for civil service examination perspective and discuss them as per the demand of the exam. The articles that we are going to take up for discussion has been tabulated in front of you and the time stamping for the same has been given in the description section. But before you take the DNS, I would suggest you take the self-assessment speed test given in the description section first. Quickly evaluate yourself, test your knowledge, get charged up, and then take the DNS so that you will be more focused and information will go in your long-term memory. There is an article on page number 10, Australia to temporarily host ISRO satellite tracking facilities. See, space cooperation is becoming an important pillar in India-Australia bilateral relationship. Recently, in the month of June, India and Australia have upgraded their relationship to comprehensive strategic partnership. And cooperation in civil space activities is one of the important elements in India-Australia comprehensive strategic partnership. The tracking facility which is being established in Australia will help ISRO in its Gaganyaan mission. Under Gaganyaan Mission, India would be the 4th nation to send man in space by 2022. There are 2 aspects to understand in this article. One is a little technical one, why Australia is suitable for space satellite monitoring and control. And based on that, why Australia is becoming an important space partner for India. See, Australia has natural comparative advantage in space science, and that is much to do with its location. Number one, if you look at the location of Australia in the map, you will realize that much of the longitude of Asia is in direct congruence with the longitudes of Australia. So the geostationary satellites can be easily monitored. But even the region coming outside the longitude of Australia can also be monitored because it is facing Asia. So the approximate region covered by IRNSS system, Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, that can also be monitored by ground stations in Australia. Number 2, it is closer to pole. In the DNS dated 8th of November, we discussed that much of the Earth observation satellites are polar satellites, and Australia's proximity with the pole make it a good location for observing, monitoring, controlling polar satellites or Earth observation satellites. Number 3, the location of Australia in southern hemisphere also gives it a geographical advantage. See, ground stations almost 75% are in northern hemisphere. Southern hemisphere dominated by ocean, there are few ground stations in southern hemisphere, approximately 25%. So the noise level in the southern hemisphere is much less than the northern hemisphere. And because there are vast open spaces in Australia, because of low density of population, there is also low light pollution. That added to the low electromagnetic noise level, it makes Australia a suitable position for calibration of satellite monitoring and control systems. And all these are also facilitated by the weather system and the clear skies above Australia. Australia has developed extensive system of ground stations because of vast latitudinal and longitudinal stretch of the continent. So these are the geographical reasons giving comparative advantage to Australia in satellite tracking, monitoring and control systems. And because of these advantages, Australia has developed good human resource and expertise in satellite monitoring and data processing. Australia has developed good courses in educational institutions, and they have good research and development base in space technologies. Although they have not developed capability in space manufacturing, but their data processing and their tracking and control system are very strong. That is why India-Australia space collaboration is strong, and it is also a pretty old one. India and Australia started to collaborate in 1987. Back then it was mostly data calibration, as we have talked about. Australia has natural advantage in this. In 2012, there was Memorandum of Understanding for Cooperation in Space Science. This year in June, when the bilateral relationship was upgraded from bilateral strategic relationship to comprehensive strategic relationship, cybersecurity and emerging technology, among others, was crucial element of the partnership. And space science will encompass both of them. Apart from these, related to space science cooperation between India and Australia, you must know that there is Australia-India Strategic Research Fund since 2006. The purpose of the fund is to facilitate research and collaboration among the researchers in leading-edge science and technology projects, and space science is covered under this. Australia is the major contributor to the fund. Almost 85% of contribution in the fund comes from Australia. And recently, Australia has announced $15 million more to the fund. This is about space science cooperation between India and Australia. But the overall cooperation, the overall bilateral relationship between India and Australia, that was already covered in the DNS dated 3rd November 2020. Since in the article we have discussed the geographical aspect in the space science, let me leave you with one more question regarding geography and space science. Why are all satellites and missiles launched from the eastern coast? If you can just recall the launching stations and missile testing stations of ISRO and DRDO respectively, you would realize that those stations are on the eastern coast. So what geographical aspect is playing out here? Please think about it and answer me. There is a news article on page number 4, Children Pen Manifesto for Political Parties in Assam. Some time back you must have heard ISRO launching student satellite, in which the contribution majorly came from student community. This time around the news is about children formulating or helping in formulation of manifesto of political parties. Next year there's going to be assembly election happening in Assam, and political parties are busy formulating their manifesto. and the time is apt for giving suggestions. So the student community, with the help of movement carried out by a Delhi-based NGO in collaboration of UNICEF, have come up with a children manifesto giving suggestions to the political parties. In the children manifesto, they have demanded for protection from violence in all forms for children, access to nutritious food, quality and affordable healthcare and education. There are points on sustainable development, which is important and we'll come to it in a short while. And then there are demands concerning to end discrimination based on caste, class, gender, religion or any other ground. That will include disability as well. Preparation of this children manifesto is part of campaign Reimagine. This is led by a Delhi-based NGO in association with UNICEF. The idea is to build a better world post-pandemic. Now, there are quite a few things that you can understand from this small article. Number one, it's a children's manifesto. The contribution to the manifesto has largely come from children. See, children are trustee of any nation. The prosperity of a nation depends on future of children, because children are not only going to be the future of the nation itself is going to depend on the capabilities that are developed by children. And an important capability of any citizen is to be able to participate in the process of governance of the nation. In fact, the National Child Policy 2013 identifies this capability development requirement in children to be able to participate in the governance process of the nation. Participating in governance process does not mean you have to join politics directly or the administration. You can participate by giving feedback like this, helping the political parties in preparing their manifesto. You can participate by using the tools of RTI to develop transparency and accountability in the governance. You can participate in the social audit process. You can participate by giving feedback and propositions when the ministry asks for it, maybe for national education policy. And all of this can develop acumen and interest to become a politician. You must have heard the famous song, इंसाफ की डगर पे बच्चों दिखाओ चल के, ये देश है तुम्हारा, नेता तुम ही हो कल के. In 2017 mains examination, UPSC has asked this question in ethics paper 4. Young people with ethical conduct are not willing to come forward to join active politics. Suggest steps to motivate them to come forward. There are many steps that can be taken. And one of the steps to develop the interest in politics very organically is to bringing them to participate very early. And this is a stellar example of it. Secondly, this was possible on the initiative of an NGO. NGOs act as interface between citizen and government. NGOs have expertise. NGOs are more empathetic. NGOs may take up issues which otherwise may not be taken up by the government. NGOs many a times become implementing agencies for programs and schemes of government. In the syllabus of GS paper 2, you have a very important topic, development process and the development industry. The role of NGOs, SAGs and various groups and associations. So the role of NGO is very important. UPSC quite often asks questions on NGOs. So you must have your notes on every subtopic of the syllabus. This you can just add on to that notes. The third aspect that you can learn from this article is the issue raised by the campaign is to sensitize many organizations on issues like child rights and sustainable development goals. See, sustainable development by definition is using the resources efficiently without compromising the ability of future generation to use the resource. Who are future generation? Children. So the biggest stakeholder in sustainable development are children. So children must be involved in the process of achieving sustainable development goals. And these days you must be hearing about many child activists, which is a positive sign. So if children manifesto is demanding sustainable development to be included in the manifesto of political parties, it is the case of people fighting for their own rights. In fact, if you look into the National Child Policy 2013, it says children must be encouraged to participate in the process, protecting their rights. And finally, since we have been talking about rights of children, let's collectively see what are the generally recognized rights of children? The rights of children you can pick from two sources. Either you go for UN Convention on Rights of the Child, or you go through Constitution of India and legislations in India. India is a signatory to UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, and it broadly classifies through its various articles the right of children as follows: the right of an identity, right to health, education, right to a family life, and hence right to be protected from violence, right to an opinion, right to be protected from armed conflict, and right to be protected from exploitation. Now I am giving you a task. It may take some of your time, but will definitely help you for your preparation. You have to corroborate each of these rights with some constitutional article of India or legislation of Government of India. Now in conclusion, we will have to talk about what is the status of rights of children in India. Without going into the deeper analysis, we can gauge the state of rights in India by one index that is called as Kids' Right Index. It is released by Rotterdam-based Erasmus University. India stands 117th out of 181 countries in the Kids' Right Index. The index can be used to gauge whether countries adhere to the principle of child rights and whether they are equipped to improve child rights. The countries are judged on basically 5 parameters: right to life, right to education, right to health, right to protection, and enabling environment, socially, politically, administratively, for child rights. It's important to improve our ranking on the index because, as William Wordsworth said, child is father of the man. This news article has been taken from page number 9. In a first, government approves a study on status of radicalization. The Union Home Ministry has for the first time approved a research study on status of radicalization in India. The study will attempt to define radicalization and suggest appropriate changes in Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. So far, radicalization has not been legally defined in India. So in order to tackle it, first of all, we need to define it. And appropriate policy on the matter has to be developed, which is also missing presently. Radicalization is pertinent to various sections of the syllabus. For example, it is pertinent to a section of GS paper 3 under internal security. There is a topic mentioned in the syllabus: linkages between development and spread of extremism. Extremism is the next step after radicalization. In GS paper 1, under the Indian society section, we have topics like communalism, regionalism, secularism. The problem arises out of communalism or regionalism or secularism because of radicalization. In 2015, UPSC has asked this question: religious indoctrination via social media has resulted in Indian youth joining the ISIS. What is ISIS and its mission? How can ISIS be dangerous to the internal security of our country? Religious indoctrination is a kind of radicalization. In 2018, in GS paper 1, UPSC has asked this question: communalism arises either due to power struggle or relative deprivation. Relative deprivation actually leads to radicalization, and then radicalization leads to extremism. And communalism is one expression of extremism. These are related concepts. Let us try and understand what is radicalization, what are its causes, and how we can tackle it. The word radical literally means fundamental change in the nature of something. And radicalization in the socio-political context means that the ideas which tends to completely change the political or social setup. It could be positive, it could be negative. Radicalization by definition is value neutral. For example, the radical ideas that were running throughout Europe in 1930s to give voting right, the suffrage to women, that was very radical idea at that point in time. We can say that radical change came in Indian economy after opening it up in 1991. So radicalization as such could be good, could be bad. But generally, we use radicalization in a negative connotation. The political and social change that radicalization tries to bring, that goes against the law of the land. It transforms individuals from moderate, law-abiding citizen into an active anti-state violent extremist. Radicalization can take various forms. For example, politico-religious radicalization, where religion is used for justification of political actions. For example, present time ISIS, what Nazi party did in Germany. There are many such politico-religious extremist radical groups presently in Europe. There could also be right-wing radicalism. This is associated with fascism, racism, or ultra-nationalism by some right-wing political parties in the present time. Parallelly, there could be left-wing radicalism, which is based on anti-capitalist demands. It considers the present political system to produce more social inequalities. And ultimately, the radicalization of the left wing may motivate individuals to take up arms and start an armed rebellion against the state through violent means. So, violent extremism or extremism requires radicalization as a predecessor step. But I must emphasize that radicalization does not mean that the person is engaging in violence. The individual having radical ideas may not be danger for the society, he may not be showing any dangerous behavior. Suppose, for example, if a person feels very strongly against government institutions and administration by the government, and he believes that everything must be privatized. It's a very radical idea, but it is not causing any violence in society. The idea by itself is not a danger for the society. But if somebody decides to execute the radical idea through fear, terror, or violence, then that is a problem, and that is called as extremism or violent extremism. Extremism basically is an extension of radicalization. Radicalization is thought and extremism is action. So to stop extremism, it is radicalization that must be stopped. There are various causes of radicalization. First of all, presently, internet is the biggest source of radicalization. It is used as a platform to propagate the terror philosophy. It is also being used by terrorist organizations to recruit the youth. When there is limited understanding of the social, political, or religious issues, and when there is easy availability or propagation of radical ideology, that situation becomes conducive for radicalization. There could be misinterpretation of the socio-political or religious ideologies. Religious scriptures can be misinterpreted. The social situation can also be misrepresented. Indoctrination speeches or literature can show that government is anti-poor. So limited understanding of socio-economic, political, religious issues will put the individual at risk to radicalization. Radicalization may also come up through personal relationships and the process of socialization. Identity crisis and social exclusion are very important prominent reasons of radicalization. That gives feeling of relative deprivation, the feeling of injustice. Then you start to break the social contract. Then you start to break the law of the land. And there is an attempt to either resist the effort of government or to overthrow the government altogether. UPSC has asked this question as we have seen previously. Communalism arises either due to power struggle or relative deprivation. Relative deprivation is one aspect of radicalization, extremism, which may be expressed in the form of communalism. Let us quickly see the steps which are needed to tackle radicalization in India. First of all, on one hand, the normal policing measures, it must be taken. Institutions like RAW and IB, they have to play very critical role right from collecting intelligence to carrying out the covert operations and having collaboration with other institutions and also the judicial courts. The government agencies have to be very active in destroying the physical assets from where these radical units are working and cutting off the financial resources that flows into their operations. And on the other hand, there has to be a holistic plan apart from policing measures. The secretary of the Committee on Criminal Reforms, who will also be the part of the research group that will be doing research on radicalization in India, he is of the opinion that radicalization is not merely a policing issue. He says that aggressive policing measure could also be counterproductive, as the youth who were radicalized were misguided. They were not culprits. Of course, when they committed the crime, they were culprits, but initially they were misguided youth. He also says that arresting youths and putting them behind the bar is not going to work. But that seems to be one important strategy to deal with radicalization. But however, it is not working. In India, people are very sensitive about religion, and religious misinterpretation is one important way of radicalizing the youth. So what is required is the correct interpretation of holy books of Quran, Gita and Bible. But that cannot be done by government or administration. So mobilization of right-thinking people in all community, if radicalization can be done, if hate can be taught, then love and social responsibilities can also be taught. And that is necessary to de-radicalize people. For example, the measures being taken by Indian Army in Kashmir, they are running army schools to develop good faith and social capital in the region. In the Maharashtra model of de-radicalization, the people, the youths who have been de-radicalized are provided employment and social support. Such kind of measures are required. Then the breeding ground of de-radicalization, which is unemployment, lack of job opportunities, poverty, deprivation, isolation. These issues needs to be addressed. And the youths, the people who are getting de-radicalized, they must feel safe and secure in the society. Internet, which is the biggest source of radicalization in the present time. The social medias, they need to be regulated. But care must be taken that right to privacy of an individual, which is a fundamental right, is not violated. This is a lead article from page number 6, The Time Use Survey as an Opportunity Lost. National Statistical Office has recently conducted for the first time in India, Time Use Survey. In this regard, the article discusses various problems in the methodology adopted by NSO. That is why, although article recognizes that this is a commendable step from NSO because such a survey has been done for the first time and it will help immensely in policy formulation. But since the methodology of the survey adopted by NSO does not instill confidence in the author, that is why the title, Lost Opportunity. However, from the examination perspective, the flaws in the time use survey are not important. So we will not discuss that. We will only discuss the concept of time use survey and its significance and importance. You must know that the time use survey has been conducted for the first time by National Statistical Office for the period January to December 2019. The primary objective of the survey is to measure participation of men and women in paid and unpaid activities. The survey collects time spending data of citizens above the age of 6 years for various activities which will include employment, unpaid domestic works, learning, socialization, religious practice, leisure, sports, self-care and maintenance, and some other activities. This is where the survey is distinguished from other surveys. Other survey like employment, or maybe the enrollment of students in school, or maybe survey on health. Those surveys do not give such a detailed data on how citizens spend their time. This is very important to understand and it will give lots of insight for policy formulation. For example, for some time now, there has been opinion of many economists that the caregiving activities by women, they must be added up in GDP. It is unpaid, but it is highly important for society. The time use data will be important especially in the context of policy formulation for women empowerment. The survey data will help us identify the extent of burden on women and girls. Spending substantial amount of their time on household works prevent them from engaging in other productive activities, employment, skill development or learning activities or even in self-maintenance. And all these are hindrance to gender inequality. Although we know it already that women spend good amount of time in caregiving, much more than men. But quantifiable data in an organized manner was not available and this survey has provided that. You must be aware that SDG 5.4 focuses on recognizing and valuing the unpaid care and domestic work through social protection policies and promotion of shared responsibility within the household and family. For example, if you see the data of the report, you will find that 18.3% of time of men that goes into employment and related activities. But for women, it is just 4.2%. Very small percentage of time of men goes into unpaid domestic work. But around 20% of females' time goes into unpaid domestic work. The time that female can give for their own learning is also less compared to male. And within the social group of women, rural women participate more on paid or unpaid work compared to urban women, because the time spent by urban women increases in the category of learning, socialization, or leisure activity. How can the numbers be used for good administration? Suppose you know in a district the time spent by women are more considerably in household activities, and in another district the time spent by women is relatively higher outside household, or time spent in socialization category or traveling is relatively higher. Then in the first district, if you want to give employment to women, that has to be something which is closer home. Maybe textile industry can be promoted. And if you want to promote food industry in which the woman may have to travel a little and spend time outside home, then you have to choose the second district. This is a lead article from page number 6. India's no to RCEP could still be a no. Very recently, on 16th of November, RCEP was covered by Pallavi ma'am. Then again on 18th of November, RCEP was dealt by me. So RCEP issue has been covered very comprehensively. But still I'll take 2 minutes of time and I will tell you that the window to join RCEP is still open. Before signing RCEP, member countries passed a declaration that if India wish, it can still join RCEP as a original signatory. But the grounds on which India refused to be part of RCEP still is there. It remains unresolved. That is why the author is saying that the no to RCEP could still be a no. You must already know this, but let's quickly recapitulate the reasons why India did not join RCEP. One of the point of disagreement was e-commerce. You must be aware that India is formulating policy in the direction of data localization. But RCEP member countries want the free flow of data, and that will happen in case of e-commerce. India wants settlement of trade-related dispute in India itself. Our courts are independent, autonomous. They give verdicts objectively, as has been done in case of Vodafone. But generally in any bilateral or multilateral agreements, there is a provision of dispute resolution outside nations at international level. India has formed a model trade dispute resolution in which the courts are part of the dispute resolution, and only if the domestic options are exhausted, we shall allow resolution at international level. But RCEP mechanism wanted dispute resolution outside national judiciaries. India wanted the base year of reducing the tariff to be 2019, but RCEP countries wanted that to be 2013. From 2013 to 2019, India raised the tariff considerably. So if the base year is 2019, we have to do lesser reductions. I must highlight this point that under RCEP, there is freedom to put different restrictions on different countries. It will not be uniform for all the countries. So if we want, we can keep higher restrictions for China. That is not a problem. But that independence will be nullified if the rules of origin are not adhered to strictly. China can route its goods through other countries like Vietnam. Although RCEP have agreements on services, but that is not to the extent as it goes for goods. There are many restrictions in services. For example, the movement of natural person, in which India was specifically interested, has been restricted considerably. Only people at managerial level or having high-end skills, they are allowed to move with lesser restrictions within the RCEP nations. India is highly focused on participation of small and medium enterprises in global trade. But bringing up issues like environmental degradation, child labor, etc., that derails India's effort of promoting MSME sector. There has been no advancement in resolving these points, nor interest have been shown in this regard. So no to the RCEP can still remain no. We have come to the end of the discussion. Now let us do question for the day. Yesterday's question was this: consider the following statements related to Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana. It provides for the conditional cash transfer of Rs 5,000 for the birth of first child to compensate the wage loss to the woman. This is a correct statement. It is available to all the women, including those working with the central and the state government, actually except those working with the central and the state government. The third statement is it is implemented by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. No, it is implemented by Ministry of Women and Child Development. So the second and the third statements are incorrect. Correct answer would be option A. Today's question is this. Consider the following statements. India can still join RCEP as an original signatory. Statement 2 is, under RCEP Agreement, India can keep different rates of tariff for China and other member nations. Which of the statements given above is correct? 1 only, 2 only, both 1 and 2, none of the above. We have come to the end of the DNS. Do not forget to attempt DNS quiz on our eLearn platform.